Good evening, everyone. Fernando here, God's a Prepared Warrior, and thank you for joining us tonight on God's Prepared Warrior Live here on this awesome Monday night. And hopefully, all of you guys can hear me. We did have everything checked out earlier, and it looks like everything is in order. We should be able to hear me. I want to say welcome in to Southern Yankee over here on TikTok. Thank you guys for jumping in over here. Keep clicking the likes so that we can get this posted out a little further. Welcome in, Missouri. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you, Salt Miss, for the 5x5. Dana, well, thank you for the 5x5. And welcome in, all of you, for God's Prepared Warrior Live tonight. If you're new to the channel, we go live every Monday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we're super excited that you guys are here with us tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about a few things that came in over the weekend, and just to kind of bring light to some of those things. Just what we do here. We talk about being prepared physically and spiritually on this channel, and we look at and how those two kind of work together. And so I am glad that you guys are here. Welcome in, OVP. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining us tonight. Make sure that you guys are following Ohio Valley Prepping. He's got a pretty awesome channel, and make sure you're checking his channel out over there. All right, so I see that a few of you are here and not in the chat. That tells me that you have not subscribed to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Join us in the chat over here so that we know you're here. We would love for you to be a part of the community. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That always helps out. Welcome in, MS Costa. Welcome in, my friend. And that helps the channel kind of get out there. So make sure you're liking and sharing and subscribing to the channel because that does good things for the channel. Speaking of good things for the channel, if you're new, of course, most of you guys already know. But if you're new, I always like to share what about now? Are we good now? Thumbs up? No. Well, that's not good. Okay, hopefully I see bars moving. Okay, 5x5. Awesome. Okay. Glitches happen here and there on this channel. Just saying. All right, as I was saying, so you guys do a lot on the channel by sharing, and subscribing, and even commenting on the videos. That's super fun. I get to read all of your comments and all the things that you are saying. There I am. Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks. So I'm going to share with you our numbers. I always do this every live stream that so that I can thank all of you personally for doing that. So over on YouTube, we are at 1,226 followers, or I'm sorry, subscribers on YouTube. So we are up 2 new community members there in YouTube. Over in TikTok, over here, we are at 4,278 followers on TikTok, which this week we gained 25 new community followers over here on TikTok. So thank you guys for joining me over here on TikTok. Keep tapping that screen so we can get this tossed out there further. Don't forget, if you haven't liked the channel or followed the channel on TikTok, make sure you're doing that. So that's where we are, 25 new community members over on TikTok. That is awesome. Over on Facebook, we are at 317 on our Facebook, God's Prepared Warrior Facebook page. And we are up 3 new community members there. Over on the groups tab in our God's Prepared Warrior community, we are at 57, still there. We are at the same place. Over on X, we are at 1,056. We gained 5 new community members there in X. And over on Instagram, we are at 1,311, which gives us 5 new community members overall. Well, in Instagram, giving us overall 40 new community members this week on all of our social media. So that is super, super awesome. Thank you guys for all that you do when you comment on videos, when you communicate with me, when you send me an email. I read all of that stuff and I answer back. So thank you guys for doing that. And thank you for sharing and subscribing to the channel. All right. So how are things going with you guys? Let's see. Make sure you get 4K watch hours before February 1st. Yes. So I need your help. I need all of y'all's help to do that, right? Thank you, OVP, for mentioning that. Yeah, that's what gets us grandfathered in. Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty. What we do next on our next segment is we look at some things that I have seen in our news, in the world, that I think we should keep an eye on. And, if you've been long enough with me here, you guys probably know what I say at the end of every video that I make. Who can say it? Who remembers? I want to see what you guys say. Who remembers that? At the end of every video I put together, I'll always say 2 things. Let's see who gets it first. Hey guys, welcome in over here on TikTok. Thank you for joining my live tonight. Hey Kit, welcome in. Saltness says, stay vigilant. Yes. There's one more part. You're missing the other part. Stay prepared. There you go. She's quick on the keys. Yeah. So I always say stay vigilant and stay prepared. And so, that is, I didn't coin that. I actually got that out of the Bible. There's a scripture in Peter. And even Jesus says, to stay alert. And it's taking that idea. If we are alert, if we're, vigilant, if we're watchful, right, we can be prepared, right? So by me saying that today, if you want to follow along with these links, they are in the description for today's live. And here's a good example of when I tell you to stay vigilant and stay prepared. So, I always go to the horse's mouth. And so I went today because it's been a while that I've checked up in these sections of the internet. But I went today to the White House page. And if you go to the White House page, there's a tab that says news. And a lot of times they will post out what's happening, what the president's doing, where he's going to be at sometimes, and then some of the things that he's doing. Well, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but there is a publication there from the White House that says Operation Economic Outcast. It says total isolation of Iran regime. And so this came out today. And if you were on social media today, you probably also saw Scott Bessent. He's the Secretary of the Treasury, and he came out today to talk about this exact thing today and how or what the next phase is in the war with Iran. And so it says today, the Trump administration unleashed Operation Epic Outcast in an unprecedented campaign to sever every remaining economic lifeline sustaining the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so it goes on here to say some of the transcript of what Scott Bessent was saying today in his press. I'm lost for words. He interviewed with the press today. That's what I'm trying to say. And so some of his talk is on this page, but you can see it if you go to the official White House website and click on the news tab, and you will see it there. You'll get to read the full thing on it. But what it is they are going to economically crash Iran and sever a bunch of the ties that they have that bring money in, from what I understand. So we'll see. I don't know if that's going to work in any way, but we'll see. We'll see. MS Coast says saw and heard about that plan. Brutal on the next level. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, SHTF is about to hit there big time. So, yeah. So that's happening. That's coming straight from the horse's mouth there at the White House. So make sure you periodically check out the White House webpage and click on that news tab, and you're going to be able to see a lot of things that are happening that you might not see in the news. And you might just get to see it before really bad things happen, right? So check that out. This next one is coming from the Department of War. And same thing, guys. If you go to these websites, you'll see on their news tab some of the things that they're talking about. And so this one says the Department of War announces a $750 million investment as part of a $1.5 billion initiative to secure critical rare earth elements from Sierra Verde. So I'm going to read this to you, and it looks like this might be the next thing. Okay. It says Department of War's Economic Defense Unit, in partnership with the Office of the Assistant Secretary of War for Industrial Base Policy, announced today a $750 million investment with USSIIE LLC through the Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment Program. These funds will be utilized to support an off-take agreement for mixed rare earth carbonates, produced at Sierra Verde's Perla Emma project in central Brazil. So it looks like this is the next spot we're going to be taking things from. So that is coming from the Department of War. So straight from the horse's mouth. Let's see. The next one is coming from, this is from the DOJ, from their website. It says, Albany, New York, woman charged with ISIS-inspired terror plot targeting New York State Capitol. I'm not really sure if you guys saw this, but this one is going to be part of our conversation tonight. But her name is Jessica Bowie. She's 35 years old, of Albany, New York, made her initial appearance today in federal court on charges of attempting to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, ISIS. As alleged, Bowie plotted to deploy an explosive device at the New York State Capitol, intending to kill public officials and destroy as much of the building as possible before fleeing to ISIS-controlled territory in Syria. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on, but the Department of Justice and the FBI working together stopped this thing from happening over the weekend. So, or last week, it was on Thursday that this was happening. So I don't know if you guys saw it. I really didn't see this last week. And when I was, searching around today, I saw that and I was like, man, that's crazy. There's crazy people in our world who are willing to be lone actors to just really create chaos. Welcome in, Granny's Southern Corner. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us tonight. So that one is there. And here's another one from the Department of Justice. It says 17 Iranians charged with conducting massive cyber theft campaign on behalf of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and other Iranian entities. It says Mabana Institute hackers attacked systems belonging to hundreds of universities, companies, and other victims to steal research, academic, and just data, right? And other property from these places. And so the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jamie McDonnell, Assistant Attorney General of National Security, and all these other people got together, the FBI, all of them, and they brought these people in for hacking into all of these places. And so this is not going to stop, right? And it's not. It is a ongoing thing. And, we are at a point where, normal's not coming back, right? You always hear me say that. Normal is not coming back. And we have to be vigilant to what is happening around us. And I use these tonight to kind of share with you that you can get information from the horse's mouth and see these things that are happening. So, don't just rely on one source and, think that, it's golden, right? Because we are also being fed a bunch of junk in our news. And so, yeah, you can't take everything at face value. You have to really, really research the things that are being said and the things that are coming out, because you know, there's also agendas in the background that are trying to be spun one specific way. And so it's important for all of us to really, really, really stay vigilant to what's happening, right? Um, let's see. Dun, dun, dun. If you go against our country and work with others to harm us, that is treason and should be treated harshly. Yes, I agree. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that, Dana. Scott says, or Saltmist says, agreed. Scott says, Dana, treason used to be a capital offense, punishable by, unaliving. You're right. You are absolutely right. But we are civilized people. Yeah, right. Oh man, as civilized as I have I'm civil in my pinky. All right, this last one is coming from the BBC. It says Nevada wildfire expected to burn for 48 hours and may spread further, officials say. We are not out of the woods from forest fires. All of those are still happening, and we need to keep Nevada now in prayer, because this is, when you look at this link, it shows you how huge this is, and how it kind of covers the whole sky. So let's keep these folks in Nevada in prayer, because they're getting close. The fire is getting close to all of them. So yeah, that's important. And then the last one is, I don't know if you guys heard about the mass killing. Police investigate 5 dead near Forest Grove, and then they found the suspect unalived in Washington. So this is a pretty big thing that happened, and it's ongoing. They're still investigating this, but 5 people were found unalived in mass unaliving Saturday at a rural property in unincorporated Washington County near Forest Groves on Sunday. They said on Sunday. Also unalived were multiple domestic animals, police said. The suspect in the incident, Benjamin Charles Parker, age 36, was later found dead or unalived by suicide in what's that? In Enumclaw, Washington. He was found inside his vehicle. So yeah, let's keep these folks in prayer, the family that remain of these folks that passed away. This was pretty big thing in the news, and it's sad. Normal's not coming back. Jesus is. Yes, you are so true, Dana. So yeah, demonic. Yep, that is true. Scott says nutrient survival reported the fires near them in Reno. Oh wow, I didn't even know that. Thank you, Scott, for sharing that. Vision preparedness, my brother. Welcome in. Welcome in. I hope you got my email. Welcome in, my friend. All right. So let's get into our topic for tonight. I'm super excited to talk about this tonight, because it kind of goes with what we were talking about earlier. I think it's important that we talk about this tonight, because I really want us to take it serious, right? You know, I probably can speak for a lot of people and say, you know, we come out on our channels, and we're not just here to talk, right? We're not just here to take an hour and, you know, take up your time and just, you know, talk about a subject and really not think about it. But tonight I want to talk about something, and I want all of us to really take it serious, right? Um, but at the same time, I don't want to cause fear, because that's not what this channel does, right? I want us to really think about this that we're going to talk about, right? Because we're still seeing cyber attacks targeting American water infrastructure. Um, and just like I read just now, of now all of the educational institutions that they're trying to break in and steal, things that are important, right? Learnings, right? We've learned how to do this thing, or people are trying to steal that information, and they're still trying to break into our water infrastructure. And just last week, right, the FBI announced that they stopped an alleged terrorism plot involving this lady that we just read about, right, in New York. And these are two completely different situations. One involves very important critical infrastructure, and the other involves, allegedly attempting to carry out an act of terrorism, right? Um, but there's a common question that we can ask, and I think this is important for all of us to think about, seriously think about. What happens when people try to disrupt the very systems and institutions that we all as Americans depend upon? I really think that's an important question for all of us to ask ourselves. I think even more importantly is, how prepared are we if they succeed? I know that in the last couple of Mondays, I've been asking that question. Are we truly prepared? Are you prepared if this thing happens? I am, I, I am so adamant about making sure that I am prepared if they do succeed. So I want to talk about this one first. I think water is important because water is life, and those three words should have a very huge significant meaning when we hear them, because without water we can't live, right? And so we already know that we have been hacked successfully. They've broken into our institutions, and they've they've tried to turn off the system. A few times it has happened, right? CSIS has reported that at least 100 facilities may have been targeted along, although, you know, this is still developing. So here recently, 100 facilities have been targeted. Federal agencies, including FBI, CISA, EPA, all the alphabet, right? All the alphabet departments, Department of Energy, they warn that, industrial control systems used in critical infrastructure are being targeted. And guess what? They don't have any kind of secure mechanism to them. They are kind of really open source if you know how to get in, right? And, here, this is what I want you guys to hear. I'm not saying that America's water supply has been contaminated. It hasn't, right? It hasn't happened yet. Um, there has not been a nationwide water failure. But that isn't the point. The point is that somebody is testing the doors. They are looking for vulnerabilities. They are looking for systems that are connected to the internet, right? They're looking for weak passwords, right? They're looking for, outdated equipment. They're looking for opportunities. They're looking, to find a way in, right? So that they can get in and do damage. And I want you guys to know that you don't wait until the door has been kicked in to ask whether, should I have locked the door, right? I mean, that's not what we do in our homes, right? And that's so important because, my wife went to Costco the other day, and she was going to add to our water stockpile, and she texted me and while I was at work, and she said, love, there is no water. I said, what do you mean there's no water? She said, there's no water. And people are all standing here with their baskets and thinking that they're going to bring water out, but there's no water. So we actually had to go on a whole other day just to get water at the Costco. And so people are starting to become aware that these things are happening. And the important thing as preppers is we need to make sure that we are on top of, our food, our water, making sure that we have those things in place. Grit and Grace. Hey, Grit and Grace, welcome in. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Welcome in. You got to give Rule a hug for me. Rule says hello as well. Yay. All right. Hey, Rule, welcome in, my friend. I'm glad you both are here tonight. So let's talk about New York, because I think this is important too, because, things like this can get swept under the rug and we won't see it if we're not really paying attention. And this is why I wanted to show you today that we can get information from the horse's mouth, right? And so let's talk about New York. I think this is important. So Jessica, this is the perp, right? She's 35 years old. She's from Albany, and she is accused of plotting an ISIS-inspired attack against the New York state capitol. She literally was given information on how to obtain a bomb or how to make a bomb, and she went to gather those materials, and she wanted to, in the conversations that were gathered, she wanted to kill or unalive a bunch of the politicians that work there and destroy as much of the building that she could. And so, according to the FBI, she allegedly conducted surveillance of the building. She sought assistance with explosives, acquired bomb-making materials, and discussed attacking the lawmakers there, right? And so the FBI ultimately stopped the alleged plot through the undercover operation. And we should recognize something really important right here, that this is what law enforcement is supposed to do, right? That's their job. They identify the potential threat, they investigate it, they stop the planning process of it, and they completely stop it before innocent people are hurt, right? And that's a success. But there's another lesson for us from that, right? the 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 threat doesn't always look the same. It doesn't. It doesn't look the same, right? Think about what we're seeing, right? We're seeing a cyber actor who can potentially sit literally thousands of miles away and attempt to interfere with the water system, right? A person inside the United States can become radicalized and allegedly begin planning an attack. Two different things, um, right? Two different plans, two ways to hurt and harm people, right? And these are two different threats, right? Because neither one requires an invading army standing at the front door, and that's important, right? Because sometimes we imagine threats as something obvious, and these are the least obvious things, right? We think of, an enemy army. We think of, some kind of major attack. We think of a hurricane, a wildfire, all of that, right? But some threats are much quieter. Someone is sitting behind a computer. Someone is watching. Someone is planning. Someone is, looking for a vulnerability. And that's where situational awareness comes in. And it's important for us as God's prepared warriors to have situational awareness about us, right? It's, I remember growing up and seeing my parents, and every morning, I remember growing up, for them it was breakfast, coffee time, and it was watching the news, right? Because that's where you got your information back in the day. And so, it was the morning news, the noon o'clock news, and then the evening news, right? And you had your local news, and then you had your world news. And so that is where everyone got their information. Now, information is at the tip of your fingers, just like I showed you tonight. It's at the tip of your fingers, and you don't have to rely on a source that's probably not a good source. You can find it for yourself. And you're able, because you're vigilant in that way, you're able to stay prepared for what may come out. So if you live in New York, and I'd pray for you if you did, um, you know, uh, you would know that, oh snap, this is happening, where I live, right? If you are in Reno, and oh my God, I have family in Reno, and I didn't know there was wildfire going on there. That's why it's important. That's why you always hear me say, stay vigilant, because that's how we're going to be prepared when we're vigilant, right? So, these threats are sometimes quiet. They come quietly, right? And it's important for us to have situational awareness about us. Now, there is going to be a rise of lone actor threats. We're starting to see it already. It's like the link I gave you guys a while back of all of the pew pew violence, right? That's happening. An actual website that tracks every pew pew incident, and it's a daily thing. So and so got pew pewed, and the three people over here got pew pewed in this club, and and it tracks all of that. And so we have to have this situational awareness about us, because it's happening everywhere. uh Welcome in, Lala. Yeah, it's important, right, to know those things and to stay vigilant. So we're going to see a rise in this kind of a thing, and it shouldn't throw us, it shouldn't surprise us, because if we're aware that we are being threatened constantly through the internet, with all these cyber attacks, if we're beginning to see these lone actors, there's a time for us now to now remain situationally aware at all times, not out of fear, but out of the necessity to keep your family safe, right? So, we also recognize that modern terrorism doesn't always kind of look like this large type of organizational structure, centering hundreds of people somewhere, right? Sometimes individuals become radicalized online, and sometimes they plot their what they're going to do, um, and they do it quietly. They do it in the shadows, and you're not ever going to know about it until the day it happens, right? And that's why it's important for us to really pay attention, right? In this particular case, right, authorities allege that this lady was inspired by ISIS, right, and she sought, to do this because she was radicalized, right? So let's not, oversimplify the story by saying, this was just a lone wolf, because the facts are more complicated. But the broader preparedness lesson here remains that in an individual can potentially create a very serious problem, and if it's where we are, it's important for us to be vigilant to that, right? And that means we need situational awareness. Now, let's look at both of these stories together, right? Um, Here's where I want you to think. Imagine that you wake up tomorrow, and I'm saying this because this happened to us the other day. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and you turn the faucet on, right? Because you're going to make your morning cup of coffee, and you turn your faucet on, and nothing happens. You check your phone, you discover your local water system is experiencing a cyber incident, and officials tell you not to drink the water until further notice, right? Do you have water? That would be the first question I hope you would ask her. Do we have water, right? Do we have enough water for the whole family, right? Um, do we have enough water for the pets? You can't forget the pets. Do we have a way to cook? Do we have water for what we're going to cook? Do we have water to flush the commode? Do we have water to bathe, right? These are the important questions that you need to ask. And remember, we're looking at this seriously tonight, right? And so I would encourage you to ask yourself those questions now. Do we have a way to maintain our basic hygiene, right? Do we have, maybe do you have information of, from a reliable source on what you're hearing, right? Or are we just kind of standing in the kitchen with the empty pot in our hand, and you say, I never thought this could happen here, and now I can't have my coffee? That's the question. Because what if the threat isn't water? What if it's electricity? What if it's the cell phone network? What if that goes down? What if it's your a banking system glitch, or they were hacked, right? What if there's a major cyber attack against transportation, right? It's happened before. What if a local emergency causes roads to close? Or in our case here the other day, what if construction inhibits the ability for you to have free flowing water to your house because they broke a pipe, because they're doing a huge project in the street down the road from my house, and they shut the water off without even telling anybody, and here you are in the morning, and you're like ready to make my coffee, and all of a sudden there's no water. um, that's that's a terrible thing. And if you're not prepared for that, um, then you will join the masses. If this was like a, an even bigger, not just a neighborhood event, but this was a, a citywide event, you would then join the masses in line at the grocery store, um, and wonder if you're going to get water, because that's what happened to all of us in 2020, right? And so, you know, it's important to know that preparedness isn't about predicting, what is the thing that's going to happen, right? Because we don't know that. It's about building enough resilience, that one disruption doesn't completely destroy your ability to function, right? And that's the important thing. Now, we had water for the situation. It wasn't long that we were without water, but I can't even imagine that. What if we're out of electricity, and you don't, and you may not know your how long it's going to be before it comes back on. Will you be able to sustain yourself even through a situation like that, right? And so, what should we do? Well, number one, we should store water. That's just an important thing. We have an ongoing storage of water here, and I am here soon going to start working on my water collection that I'm planning on for the outside. Um, so I do plan to do a video on that and show you guys what I'm doing to collect rainwater from the back porch. So that's one of my projects. But I think that should be our number one thing on what we're looking at tonight, is that we store water, right? Because we're going to need it. Water is life, and we need it. We can't go long without it. And water involves many things, right? The washing of your clothes, the washing of your body, drinking water for sustainability, cooking with water. Water is for so many things, water for your pets. And so it's important that that would be our number one thing that we do. Yes, we need to, Lala says we need to learn how to store rainwater. Yes, we do. That is very true. The number two thing I think we should do, more important, well, not more or even less, but importantly, is build at least, and I wouldn't say this is what you do and you hang on to it, but have at least a 72-hour foundation. Um, that gives you 3 days of water, food, medication, first aid, all of that stuff, right? Power banks, you need that. That's in the event that you're going to be 3 days without that stuff. There are people who, like us, went without water. There are people who go without electricity. There are people right now in the United States, because of these storms that have come through, that are still without electricity, and they haven't got their electricity back after the storms. And so, yeah, that is currently happening in the United States. And so we need to build some kind of foundation of preparedness. And I think the third thing is that we need to have information without the internet. I know we rely on the internet. I know we're using the internet right now to do all the things. But in the event that we do not have the internet anymore, I would encourage you to have some type of radio, right? Some type of access to hear information that comes over the radio waves, that you're able to communicate. If you're not able to communicate, but you're able to listen to and hear, maybe that's you know, a radio that just receives, right? If you have the option to buy a GMRS radio, a CB radio, a ham radio, and get your licenses for all those things. You'll be able to listen and talk once you acquire the licenses for those things, right? CB radio, you don't need a license. FRS, you don't need a license, but all of that is local. Simplex, local, right? GMRS, through repeaters, you can go out a little further in your local area. Ham radio, you can go even further because you're bouncing off the ionosphere with your radio wave. And so that's important to have too, right? So, it's important for us to have information, even if we are not able to have the internet. Practice that, right? Let's say that, you put your phone down for the evening and you're like, okay, I need information. How am I going to find information? Maybe you're utilizing, a hand crank radio. Maybe you're utilizing one of your, GMRS or ham radios to get information. Do that. Put the phone down, practice that. That's what I call practicing with your preps. And that's another way of you building situational awareness about you through those activities, right? I think the fourth thing is that we pay attention to our community. Community is important. This is where the New York case, kind of becomes relevant, right? You don't need to become suspicious of everybody, right? Because if you live where I live, you'd be like, that person looks a little sus, but it just you just never know. But we should pay attention to our surroundings, right? If you see something, it's important to bring it to the light, right? Report those things. And it's awareness without fear, right? Situational awareness is awareness without fear, and that's important to have. But there's an even bigger preparation that we all need to have, right? And now this is where we go from the physical preparedness to spiritual preparedness, because here's the question: what happens to your faith when the systems that you trust stop working, right? It's easy to say, I'm going to I can trust God when everything is going well, right? It's easy to say that. It's easy to have peace when your bank account has money in it, right? Or you're able to at least access it, right? It's easy to say that you trust God in those times. It's easy to say, I can trust when the lights are on, or when the water's running, or when my family is safe, or when the phone works, or when my job is secure. But what happens when those things change, right? I talked a little bit about that this morning in my video this morning. What happens when those things change? That's when a spiritual foundation really, really matters. I'm going to tell you, there was a day in my life when I was on top of the world in the job that I had, and I was doing well. Everybody at my job loved me. I was doing my job really well. And one day, because I decided to move to a different department, and this department involved training, 6 weeks of training. It involved 5 modules to learn, to really memorize, and then to test on and pass, right? And there was a certain percentage that you had to make to pass. And on my last test, I missed the percentage I needed by one question. And that one question that I missed, I lost my job. I couldn't go back to my old post because going into a different department changed everything. And I felt like the rug beneath my feet was pulled out from under me. And, I was angry and mad. And, what happens to your faith in that situation? I'm gonna be honest with you. I was mad at God in that situation, and I tried to do the opposite of Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. And this is why that verse is so important to me in my life, because I realized in those months that I was searching for a job every single day and applying I applied, I think in one day I would apply for like maybe anywhere from 10 to 15 jobs a day. And got nothing back. I got nothing back. And in my conversations with God, I was angry. I was like, God, why have you abandoned me in this? Why did I lose my job that I love so well and I did well? And why did I just miss this test by one question? Why couldn't you help me? It was because Fernando was trying to do things on his own rather than trusting in God. And so the important thing in our life is to have that good, great foundation with the Lord, right? Um, because when something happens, that's where I'm going to revert to. I'm going to be going back to God and say, okay, God, we're at this point, right? Help me remember everything that I've learned in this whole situation, in this whole preparedness thing. Help me to be a leader in this moment and not to allow fear to guide my next move, right? Because we can't let fear become our master, right? And we're not preparing because we believe the disaster is inevitable. We're preparing because Jesus told us to be watchful, right? We're not called to live in fear. We're called to live in wisdom. And we don't know what tomorrow will bring. I can't tell you what will happen tomorrow. I can't be on this channel and say, well, we got 3 days to this. No, I can't do that. I can't, because I don't know what God has in store. But we know who holds tomorrow. And that is the difference, right? So here's the real question that I want you guys to take away tonight. We're almost done. If somebody, the real question is not, is somebody going to attack America? The real question is not, is the water system going to collapse? The real question is not, is terrorism coming, to my neighborhood? The question is, if something does happen, how dependent am I on everything working perfectly? Think about it. How dependent are you on the power? How dependent are you on the internet? How dependent are you on cell phones, right? That's the question. Because I will tell you that don't be completely helpless without them. Yeah, we need our phone. We need to communicate. We need the internet because, we got to stay vigilant, right? But in the moment that we lose those things, we're not completely helpless without them. We just don't have them. And it's important for our resilience to kick in and to really start working on the foundation that we've built, right? And so, we're seeing something important happening around us. We're seeing something, we're seeing water infrastructures being targeted by these cyber attacks. We're seeing law enforcement, stopping individuals accused of planning acts of terrorism. We're seeing technology is changing the way threats can reach us, right? But that doesn't mean that we stop being vigilant. That doesn't mean that we stop preparing, right? That just means that we're not afraid of what is to come, because we know that God has us in the palm of our hands. So let us stay vigilant, right? Let us stay watchful. Let us stay wise. Let us stay prepared, right? And let us trust in God. Rule says, I pray every day that God grants me the tools and the wisdom to protect and provide for my family until I am called home. Amen to that, my brother. I do the same thing. Amen to that. So, with that in mind, guys, remember when I say stay vigilant, go and research, right? Don't take things, at face value. We have to research and make sure that we're seeing everything, not just one word or one website or one news outlet. We're making sure we are on top of what we're vigilant to. So, with that, guys, thank you for so much for joining me tonight. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go to Rules channel. Don't forget, to go to OVP's channel, Trent's channel over at Vision Preparedness. And don't forget to go and like and share and subscribe to their, and Grit and Grace too, her channel too as well. I love her channel. Make sure you're subscribed, and we're all learning together, guys. We're doing this together. I love this family that I'm a part of. I love the opportunities that I get to, talk to OVP, to talk to Vision Preparedness, to say hello to Rule, when he comes on our live. And that's just so cool. I love this community, and I love you guys, and I'm always praying for all of you. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday night on God's Prepared Warrior Live. Have a great night, guys, and hope to see you on tomorrow morning's video. God bless. Be careful out there. Stay vigilant. Stay prepared. God's Prepared Warrior out.